The clock is ticking in Manchester, and at the Etihad, a new operation is beginning to take shape. Manchester City, accustomed to acting with discretion and precision, are preparing a move that could redefine the balance of power in their midfield. Sources close to the club confirmed that a $52 million proposal is being finalized for a player who meets all of Pep Guardiola's requirements. The Spanish coach, meticulous and obsessed with control, is personally involved in the negotiations, a clear sign that this is not a simple reinforcement, but a strategic addition for the team's future. The context is clear. Rodri, the pillar of City's possession and support system, has struggled to maintain consistency since suffering a serious cruciate ligament injury during the 2024-25 season. His prolonged absence and recent muscular discomfort have raised alarms. Pep is not a man who waits for fate to act. He anticipates, plans, replaces, before necessity turns to desperation. For that reason, although the Spaniard is seen as untouchable, the club is already moving to ensure the engine of the midfield continues to run without faults. Among the names studied, Morton Yulman of Sporting CP stands out with growing strength. At 25, the Dane is described by analysts as a complete midfielder, capable of dictating the tempo of play, marking, building, and offering tactical width in quick transitions. His reading of the game and precision in short passes recall the profile Guardiola so admires. Sources close to the coach claim that Pep was impressed by Yulman's control in high-pressure matches, especially in European competitions, where he has shown rare composure and intelligence for a player of his age. City's plan is clear: to submit an initial $52 million bid, with performance bonuses that could raise the total value. Manchester United and Tottenham are watching closely, which will heat up the competition. However, within the Etihad, there is confidence that Guardiola's sporting project, combining immediate success with legacy building, will be decisive in convincing the player. The Dane fits perfectly into Pep's philosophy: a disciplined, technical, versatile player with a collective mindset. Meanwhile, the medical team continues to monitor Rodri carefully. He was rested for the Champions League win and will also miss the Premier League clash against Aston Villa. Guardiola confirmed that it is a mild muscular injury, but requires caution to avoid a relapse. After a serious injury, the body takes time to readapt. We cannot rush the process, the coach explained. For the Spaniard, every minute lost in planning is an opening for chaos, and prevention is the first line of defense for a team seeking stability in a demanding season. At the same time, another move could mark a new phase in the squad's renewal cycle. Mateo Kovacic, who joined from Chelsea in 2023 with the mission of adding experience and technical quality to the midfield, may be nearing the exit. At 31, the Croatian faces strong internal competition and has lost ground to younger players who represent the future of the team. Guardiola respects him deeply, but understands that the moment demands renewal. According to English sources, City are open to negotiating his departure as early as January. AC Milan's interest is the most concrete. The Italian club see in Kovacic an opportunity to add leadership and technical quality to their squad without needing a major financial outlay. The player, who had a notable spell with Inter Milan, would reportedly be open to returning to Serie A, where he experienced one of the most productive periods of his career. Other clubs such as Villarreal, Real Betis, West Ham, and Aston Villa are also monitoring the situation, but Milan's sporting project and stability work in the Italians' favor. Kovacic's potential departure opens the door for a new phase of midfield reconstruction at City. Since arriving in 2016, Guardiola has been tireless in adapting the squad to the evolving demands of modern football. The average age of the group has been gradually falling, and investments in young talents like Rico Lewis, James Trafford, and Ryan Cherki reflect that trend. The objective is simple: to prepare the next generation to sustain the club's legacy in the coming seasons. In this transitional scenario, Pep wants to ensure the structural foundation of the team remains solid. The midfield is the heart of his system, and it is there that he channels his greatest obsession. The arrival of Yulman would not only be a reinforcement but a continuity strategy, the kind of signing that keeps the mechanism alive even when old parts begin to wear out. Guardiola sees football as a symphony, and every player must strike the precise note. When someone loses rhythm, he changes the instrument without hesitation. At the same time, behind the scenes, a parallel story draws attention. Mohamed Ihataren, a Dutch forward once considered one of the greatest prospects in European football, is back in the headlines. An analyst remarked that the young man had everything to become a millionaire playing for Barcelona or Manchester City. At 20, he should be in his prime, but reality turned out differently. After debuting for PSV Eindhoven at 16 and shining in European competitions, his career went off track through unsuccessful transfers and off-field issues. Discreet spells at Juventus, Samsunspor, and Slavia Prague left scars. Now, he is attempting to rebuild his career at Fortuna Sittard. Ihataren's case is used within City as an example of how talent without discipline fades over time. Guardiola values technique, but above all, character and professionalism. That is what he sees in players like Yulman, athletes capable of understanding the game with the mind, not only with their feet. Pep often says internally that talent is merely the starting point. Destiny is shaped by mentality, and this philosophy is reflected in every decision the club makes in the transfer market. As negotiations progress, City supporters live through the mixture of anxiety and anticipation that accompanies every transfer window. Guardiola, calm in appearance, knows that every move defines the project's future. For him, football is a continuous line where each present decision resonates in the long term. That is precisely why the search for a new midfielder is not just a tactical necessity, but an affirmation of vision. Even with Rodri's setbacks, there is confidence within the Etihad that the Spaniard will return to his best form. Pep considers him indispensable. If he were 100%, he would play every day, he recently declared. Still, the coach does not ignore the signs of time. Prudence today may mean success tomorrow. The season is long, and City want Rodri fully fit when perfection is required, in the decisive stages of the Champions League and the final stretch of the Premier League. The atmosphere at Manchester City is one of quiet reconstruction. Nothing is done in haste, nothing driven by panic. Guardiola thinks in cycles, not months. What is unfolding now is the preparation of a new core, capable of sustaining the playing style that has made City dominate Europe. A new name will arrive, others will depart, but the system will remain the same: control, patience, and intelligence. That is Pep's essence, and the entire club moves in tune with his rhythm. Inside the Etihad, Guardiola's plan is not simply to replace, but to redesign the midfield with a new logic. The generational transition, discreetly initiated after the treble triumph in 2023, has been conducted with surgical precision. Established players are gradually losing ground, and the focus has shifted to developing talents capable of maintaining the city's identity of possession and control, but with a younger, more intense energy adapted to the frenetic pace of the modern Premier League. Morton Yulman's name emerges in this context as the exact response to Pep's needs. City's internal analysis describes the player as a balance between strength and intelligence. He possesses the hybrid profile the Spanish coach has sought since his Bayern days, an athlete who thinks like a playmaker but defends like a holding midfielder. In Lisbon, Yulman became the engine of Sporting, a player who builds play from deep but has the courage to press high, break lines, and lead the group mentally. These traits made Guardiola see him as a kind of spiritual heir to Rodri, someone capable of preserving the system's fluency when the starter is unavailable. The City board has already made contact with the players' representatives. Sporting, aware of interest from major clubs, is preparing a firm stance. They will not negotiate for less than $60 million. However, sources close to the process say that Yulman's desire to work with Guardiola could weigh heavily in the talks. The Dane has followed City's style for years and has stated in previous interviews that football under Pep is the highest expression of control and harmony. For him, playing in that system would be like entering an elite football university. As City moves, the English media are beginning to speculate on the consequences of this operation. The arrival of a new midfielder would not only create competition, but could also redefine roles within the squad. Mateo Kovacic, for instance, finds himself increasingly under pressure. Despite the respect of the coach and staff, his physical condition and drop in pace have placed him in a vulnerable position. Guardiola does not act on emotion. When he senses a cycle is over, he clears the path for the next one without hesitation. January promises to be busy. AC Milan see Kovacic as a golden opportunity. The Italian board want to reshape their midfield and believe the Croatian, with his international experience and quality in short transitions, could be the ideal piece. On City's side, the decision already seems made: release the player if the offer is right and reinvest the funds in youth. This is the essence of the project: recycle to evolve, without nostalgia. Behind the scenes, the club remains stable, but there is a shared awareness that the era of comfort is over. City, often accused of being a perfect machine, knows that perfection is fragile. Small cracks, like Rodri's prolonged absence, reveal the importance of maintaining depth in every position. Guardiola insists that the secret of his philosophy lies in the predictability of the unpredictable, preparing for all eventualities before they become problems. The coaching staff maintain an almost scientific control over Rodri's recovery. Every session, every minute on the pitch is measured through physiological data. Guardiola relies on technology, but also on intuition. He understands that a player like Rodri, who acts as a tactical brain, must be mentally confident before being physically cleared. For that reason, he avoids rushing his return, even under pressure from fans. He would rather lose a match in October than lose the player for months during the peak of the season. This patience comes at a cost. Without Rodri, City miss their natural balance. The possession system becomes more vulnerable to opponents' quick transitions, leaving the defense exposed. The pursuit of Yulman, therefore, is not a luxury. It is a safety measure, an investment in continuity. Guardiola knows that modern football punishes slow decision-making, and his constant anticipation is what sets him apart. He spots gaps that have not yet opened and fixes flaws before they become visible. What impresses observers is how City managed to renew without losing identity. Unlike clubs that change philosophy each season, City maintained the same conceptual foundation. Since 2016, every signing has been conceived as part of a grand mosaic. Yulman's arrival, if completed, would follow that logic. A technical, tactical, and even psychological fit. The player embodies everything Guardiola values: intelligence, discipline, commitment, and composure. Inside the Etihad corridors, some compare this moment to the transition the club experienced when Fernandinho departed. Back then, many doubted whether Rodri could assume the same influence. Years later, the Spaniard not only maintained the level, but redefined the holding midfielder's role in modern football. Now, Guardiola seeks to repeat the cycle, preparing the next maestro before the current one must say goodbye. On the human side, there is a silent dimension to this entire story. Rodri, aware of the move for a successor, shows no discomfort. His relationship with Guardiola is built on transparency and mutual respect. He understands that the coach always acts with the collective in mind. The Spaniard knows that no one is eternal in a club that lives in constant evolution. Rather than seeing the pursuit of Yulman as a threat, he interprets it as protection for the project he helped build. This is the City mindset. Every decision, however difficult, is guided by the desire to stay on top. Meanwhile, the club's analytics department continues mapping players with similar profiles. The goal is to maintain a constant radar of talents able to adapt to the coach's methodology. Young players like Nico Gonzalez and Ryan Cherki are part of this strategy. They represent the vision of a club preparing for the next decade, not merely the next season. Guardiola knows his legacy depends on the longevity of the system, not the duration of his contract. Across Europe, City's interest in Yulman is viewed as another masterstroke of vision. At a time when clubs chase marketing stars, Guardiola and his staff continue choosing players with working-class spirit and scientific mindset. It is not about names, but about functions. Pep wants builders, thinkers, organizers, athletes who turn the game into an act of precision, and Yulman seems to fit that mold perfectly. With the market about to reopen, the backstage atmosphere is heating up. Talks between City and Sporting are progressing cautiously. The English club know that any hasty move could inflate the price, and Guardiola insists the focus remain on the matches. Even so, there is an internal feeling of inevitability, as if everyone already knows the Dane will soon wear sky blue. Yet what few perceive is that this movement goes far beyond tactics. By investing once again in a cerebral midfielder, Manchester City reinforced their identity as a thinking club. In times of haste and immediacy, City remain a reminder that football can still be art, strategy, and patience. Guardiola builds with time what others try to buy with urgency, and perhaps that is why his empire stands firm while so many crumble around it. The impact of these movements is beginning to be felt behind the scenes at the Etihad. Every player senses that the era of stability is over. Guardiola has made it clear in internal conversations that the club's new phase will demand more than talent. It will demand total commitment to the collective and an ability to adapt. Manchester City has become an institution that thrives not on names but on ideas. In this philosophy, no one has a guaranteed place. Even champions, idols, and leaders must constantly prove they are still part of the greater plan. The dressing room feels this change. There is absolute respect for Guardiola, but also a silent tension, the kind of energy that emerges when everyone realizes the club is about to turn the cycle once again. Experienced players such as Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, and Kovacic know they are entering the phase where time begins to weigh. City is a machine that never stops updating itself, and Pep keeps it turning with the precision of a watchmaker. When one cog shows signs of wear, he replaces it without hesitation. The secret lies in the continuity of the symphony, not in the permanence of the musicians. In training, Guardiola has intensified rotation dynamics. The midfield is being tested with tactical variations that simulate emergency scenarios. Rico Lewis, young and versatile, has often been used as a defensive pivot, while Johnny Rangers, a recent academy revelation, has been experimenting with a hybrid role between defensive midfielder and inverted full-back. Pep wants to prepare the team to operate without individual dependencies. That is the lesson left by Rodri's injuries. No system survives if it is tied to a single piece. At the same time, Rodri remains central to the emotional core of the club. He is more than a player. He is a pillar of psychological stability. Even while injured, he takes part in tactical sessions and maintains constant dialogue with the younger players. Guardiola treats him as an extension of his own mind within the squad. He understands the game with the clarity of a coach, the Spaniard has said privately. That is why Rodri's recovery is being handled with such care. His return, when it comes, will represent not only a technical reinforcement, but also a symbolic restoration of order in midfield. The supporters experience this moment with a mixture of concern and trust. Some fear that Rodri's prolonged absence might destabilize the system, but there is also certainty that Guardiola always finds solutions. Since his arrival, the manager has turned crises into opportunities. When he lost key pieces in previous seasons, he reinvented the team. Now the challenge is to do it again in a scenario of both physical and mental transition. The fans know City does not play merely with athletes, but with ideas, and ideas do not get injured. As the transfer window approaches, the club operates in total discretion. Negotiations for Yulman remain confidential. Director Chiki Begiristein maintains direct contact with Sporting, and the terms of the deal are being refined to fit within the financial limits imposed by the Premier League. Guardiola, though eager for the signing, avoids interfering directly in the figures. His role is technical, and he fulfills it perfectly. The priority is to ensure that, when the player arrives, there will already be an integration plan prepared, detailed, and tailored to City's style. Pep's vision extends beyond the next season. He sees football as a structure of cycles. Every 2 or 3 years, the squad must be partially rebuilt, not out of weakness, but to maintain vitality. The coach believes that repetition kills inspiration, and that the secret of longevity lies in the constant renewal of ideas. That is why each new signing is conceived as a new cell that oxygenates the organism of the team. Yulman embodies precisely that: youth with maturity, intensity with intelligence. The potential arrival of the Dane also opens a reflection on the role of the Premier League as the epicenter of modern football. Players like him seek not just a contract, but an opportunity for intellectual evolution. Working under Guardiola is a seal of excellence, a promise of transformation. Many players claim that after one season with him, they become more aware, more tactical, more complete. The coach does not merely teach them how to play, he teaches them how to think. And it is that kind of legacy that City aims to preserve. While the international press speculates about fees and deadlines, inside the club the narrative is different. City views this operation as part of long-term engineering, not as a short-term reaction to Rodri's injuries. The philosophy is clear: anticipate before it happens, prepare before it fails. That mentality has made the club one of the most consistent in Europe. Even under pressure, City never panics. Serenity is Guardiola's hallmark, and it influences everyone around him. Success for him is the sum of patience and precision. But this transformation is not confined to the pitch. City is also working to adjust the mindset of its academy. Young players are taught from an early age to understand the game as a system of decisions, not impulses. The club invests heavily in cognitive development, tactical reading, spatial awareness, timing, and emotional control. Guardiola wants every youngster who reaches the first team to already speak the language of the system. And that, more than any signing, is the true secret of dominance. In this context, the trajectory of Mohamed Hadaren stands as a warning. The case of the Dutchman, who once seemed destined for greatness but lost his way through poor choices, serves as a lesson. Guardiola uses examples like this to reinforce the value of discipline. Talent without control is a ticking bomb, he said in an internal meeting. City's philosophy is not only about playing well, but about sustaining success without losing oneself along the way. It is a culture that rewards consistency over flashes of brilliance. And while the world watches City's movements, one detail often goes unnoticed. Guardiola is building not only a squad but an ecosystem, a network of ideas, values, and processes that will outlive his eventual departure. He knows he will not be there forever, but he wants to leave behind a structure capable of winning even when he is no longer on the touchline. The signing of players like Yulman is a brick in that invisible building, the consolidation of a style that no longer depends on its creator to exist. The season continues, and City keeps winning, even amid adjustments and uncertainties. Guardiola smiles faintly on the sidelines, not because everything is resolved, but because he knows the system still breathes, still learns, still evolves. Every pass, every movement, every training session is a piece of the same puzzle: continuity. What he is doing is more than preparing a team. It is ensuring that the philosophy survives time. Manchester City is living another of those moments when the present and the future meet on the same pitch. Guardiola, like a silent conductor, leads the transition with the calmness of someone who understands that each cycle must reinvent itself to remain victorious. The pursuit of Yulman, Rodri's recovery, and the possible departures in midfield are not just backstage stories. They are clear signs of a club that refuses to stand still in time. While many see uncertainty, Pep sees opportunity. He knows that every change, no matter how uncomfortable, is what keeps Manchester City alive, competitive, and ready to stay at the top of Europe. History shows that under Guardiola, every crisis turns into reinvention, every absence into a chance for evolution. Now, the fans face a new chapter, a squad renewing itself, a system refining itself, and a manager who continues to challenge the limits of modern football. City is no longer just a team. It is a laboratory of ideas, a philosophy in motion. And if you want to follow every detail of this transformation, every behind-the-scenes moment, every decision shaping the club's future, don't forget, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here, you'll stay up to date with everything happening at Manchester City, with information, analysis, and emotion in every new match day.